What I would suggest to all students who are heading down the road to post-secondary education is that they learn how to speak for themselves. They have had others do that for them, their parents, maybe special education teachers or other teachers do that for them. It's now time for them to make the decision to do it for themselves. What I mean by this is that they know what their disability is and how it impacts them, so that they can clearly tell someone like me, as a director of accessibility, what they're going to need when they get to our campus. So even though it's maybe a different experience to speak for themselves, it does help them grow, and it certainly helps me to know what to do for them once they arrive on our campus.
I think something that's really important is to make sure you come to see us early rather than later. Even if you would come and see us your junior year of high school, so that you can get to know us a little bit and see if it's a good fit for you, and then decide if that school works for you as well. And then following up on that, it'd be good to come and see us in the summer before, and then in the fall make sure you come and see us and get accommodations set up. Even if you think you don't want to use special services anymore, as a student, it would be a really good idea to go ahead and get those services in place, and then we'll work with you to use those services as much or as little as you want to use those services. But it's better to get those set up early rather than to wait until you're struggling and then come and see us, because we may not be able to help you as much as we could if you came earlier to see us.
When you leave high school, you're entitled to get a copy of your IEP or your 504 plan. Keep that. Keep it safe. Put it somewhere you know where it is, even if that means that you scan it into an email to yourself. We're going to want a copy of that to help go over what's worked, what hasn't worked, what can we try, what should we try. Just having that documentation from the start is going to be easier. To go back after the fact and get a copy is a lot more work than you would think, just because your school administration is busy, so getting that paperwork takes some time.
A modification is any change that is made to any homework or an exam or any classroom work that you're doing. And accommodation is to give you equal access in the classroom, so that's something that's going to assist you or help you be successful, but not necessarily change the content or the process of how the exam or the homework is given to you. The biggest difference between high school and any college is that there are no modifications, only accommodations. So we always encourage students to keep that in mind when they are trying to prepare themselves for college, and making sure that they try to maybe wean themselves off of those modifications as early as they can. For some students that may be their junior year, some students that might not be till their last semester of their senior year. But just getting themselves used to having that difference in not having the modifications but only having the accommodations.
It seems like there are a lot of factors that families and students don't take into consideration that can contribute to their success or, unfortunately, their failure. And those might be things like as simple as getting out of bed on your own, getting to bed on your own as well, eating, doing your homework, getting to class, taking your medications. Those are all things that I think sometimes people underestimate how much support a student's getting when they're in K-12, and so when that student gets to post-secondary and they're left to their own devices, those can be some of the factors that contribute to not doing well and experiencing frustration and failure. I think it's really important for students to acknowledge that they need some kind of supports. Everybody needs supports of some kind, and putting in place and becoming comfortable with whatever that might be. Some students are very comfortable with a smartphone, and that might be the best place to put a calendar and reminders and all those sorts of things. Other students, they're more inclined to lose the phone and forget to charge it than to actually use it as a productive tool. For those students, having a planner. So I think it's really important to figure out something as basic as how do I track my life? What does this mean to me to make sure that I'm staying on top of things?
I would just say that it is really important to early on identify if you struggle with time management or just being able to get up in the morning on time and those kinds of things. You want to make sure that you identify that to somebody on campus. So, for example, your disability services person, so that they can help connect you to those resources, because whether you have a disability or not, all students are expected to manage their own time and the expectations and the responsibilities on their own. And we have the resources to help students to learn how to do that, but we don't do it for students. And so we really want to teach students that need it how to be self-sufficient in those areas.
My tip would be to just know that accommodations are not retroactive in the college atmosphere. So a good example of this would be students typically like to come to college and just try it out without accommodations or letting the Disability Services Office know of their disability. And then after their first test, they might struggle, they might not do as well as they planned, and then they want their accommodations. At the college level, we are unable to go backwards and do redos or anything of that nature. So it's only from the date we receive documentation moving forward that we can offer accommodations. So what I tell students typically is to just, even if you feel like you're not going to need accommodations at the college level, just to provide the documentation so it is on file in our office. And then if you don't need it, great. But if you get into a class that might be tough or you're struggling, at least we have everything on file to say, yes, this student does get extra time on tests or quizzes, or they do have note takers or other accommodations that could help them through the classes.